Welcome back, y'all. I'm Cyrus, and this video is about the 3 principles that you can bring to your team to make sure that it's versatile, that everyone's happy, and that over the long term, everyone feels good about the work that they're doing every day. For me, when I started my first project as a lead, not even a team lead or a manager, but just leading my first project, I spent a good amount of time thinking about what I could do to make everyone's experience on the team as best as possible. For me, that ended up boiling down to 3 main principles, and those are the 3 that we're going to talk about today. Number 1, the idea that everyone every day should feel like they know the role that they're playing on the team. They should know viscerally and clearly what it is that the team is depending on them for, beyond just pulling tasks off the backlog and getting them done. Number 2, you want everyone to feel like they're learning something new every day. That's a little bit tricky, and we'll go into it a bit later, but people feeling like they're learning something new every day is a great way to keep developers motivated. You and I both know that one of the best feelings is feeling like you're expanding your skills and you're getting something new out of your job. So you want to focus on that too. And then lastly, it's important that everyone feel a sense of momentum in their work. Now, this can mean a bunch of different things, but specifically what it means is that folks aren't getting stuck on their pull requests or the code that they're submitting in particular. And we'll talk about some rules of thumb that I have around that too. So first up, people feeling like they know the role they're playing in the team. Now, the idea here is that everyone wants to feel like they have some kind of leadership role. It doesn't have to be the CTO or the director of their division. Just knowing that when they come into work every day, they have a key role, they're a key player on the team for some particular reason is super motivating. So when you think about it in the context of a project team, what this can look like is that someone knows the most about, let's say, database changes or database schemas or how to optimize the software that you're writing to be low cost and friendly on the database as a resource. You want to make sure that that person feels empowered to bring their knowledge to the other folks on the team. You want to make sure that everyone on the team knows that that's a superpower or a skill that that person has. It doesn't mean, and we'll get to this next, it doesn't mean that they should do any task that somehow even a little bit relates to working with the database. Then they're not going to learn new things. But making sure their role as a specialist is known and that they're able to exercise it on a regular basis is important. As a manager, as a team lead, something you can do to facilitate that is calling them out in pull requests to look at particular parts of the code. Even if you already know in your head that there's an issue with a certain piece, you can always just call them out and say, hey, I'd like you to take a look at this, see if you see anything in particular. It's a good way to share and consistently delegate to that person's expertise that you're trying to shine a light on to. Now second, the idea of learning something new every day. Again, as I mentioned before, you know as a developer that you crave learning new things. It's what makes new frameworks exciting, it's what makes new tools exciting. That learning mindset, I think, is something that's universal across developers, no matter what languages or tool chains they're using on a daily basis. So when you think about how that relates to the daily life of the team that you're responsible for, think about where a particular individual maybe is imbalanced in their skills. You know, everyone has specialties, and that's what you want to emphasize to my first point, but people also have weaknesses. And so a good way that you can encourage an environment of learning, again, on an individual by individual basis, without pulling a big move and introducing a new framework or an entirely new tool, is encouraging a particular person to grab tasks that push them out of their comfort zone. Maybe this person hasn't written too much front-end code in React, for example. You can encourage them to work on a particular part of the feature that intersects with the front end in maybe a challenging way that you can anticipate as the lead. And then they'll learn something new and be able to engage with a new kind of problem. Now, as a kicker, this has an ancillary benefit, and that benefit is that it means everyone on your team will become incrementally more versatile. Just by encouraging someone to work on something new that they don't really know well, you're actually increasing their skill at it. So before you know it, you'll have a team that has more balanced skill sets than they did in the beginning. And as it relates to my first point, if you're pushing a person, sticking with our example, to pick up a couple tasks that relate to using React, you should make sure that they know that they can talk to whoever on your team has that expertise, right? You can simultaneously create an opportunity for someone to learn, for someone else to be a mentor and to share their expertise, and for your team's overall balance of skills to start balancing out. Now, lastly is the idea of momentum. To me, momentum is something that you feel in your gut as a developer. We all know this feeling of having a pull request that takes 3, 4, maybe even 5 days to merge, that has 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe even 100 comments. And maybe it's one that you've worked on for 2 or 3 days leading up to that moment when all of that drawn out review and feedback came to bear. Now, there are a bunch of ways to avoid having tons of feedback on your PRs where you're talking with folks as you're building to build consensus around your solution. But despite those specifics, the rule of thumb that you can use to make sure that your team or the individuals on your team have momentum in general is saying, is everyone merging at least one pull request per day? In other words, are they coming in the next day working on something different than what they were working on the day before? Now, of course, you're not always going to meet that perfectly, right? But by encouraging your team to work in smaller chunks, to submit smaller pull requests, not only will they be easier to review, but you also reduce the risk of someone working on a change that's fundamentally flawed for too long and it becoming impossible for them to merge it and then becoming demotivated. So for me, momentum is actually really something that you can measure in terms of the frequency of folks merging pull requests. If you don't do pull requests, just think about it as the frequency of merging in general. How often is someone stuck on a particular task for more than a day? If it's often, that's something you can fix, and it'll probably immediately improve that person's sense of satisfaction and happiness with their work. Now, how did this all work for me? Again, making sure people know the role they're playing and know that they're supposed to flex their expertise, making sure that everyone's learning something new every day, and lastly, that people have a sense of momentum in their work. For me, it was incredible. I actually, in my first opportunity to lead a project, was working with a team that was incredibly imbalanced in terms of specialties and skills. I had one engineer who had previously done data engineering and was completely specialized with expertise in databases, but hadn't really worked with the rest of our full stack, Ruby and Rails, and a little bit of JavaScript on the front end at the time. I had another engineer who was fresh out of college and was more of a generalist, but didn't have as much experience in any part of the stack in particular. And then lastly, I had an engineer that was completely front-end focused, that really didn't feel comfortable doing too much full-stack engineering and certainly not doing anything intricate or interesting with the database. And so with these folks, it was a great opportunity to flex and test some of these hypotheses about what would make a team feel happy and motivated. And it worked. What ended up happening was that everyone knew who they could go to when they had questions because there was someone with expertise in a part of the stack that they didn't have right on their team, right there working on the project. And it made the folks who didn't have experience, let's say our teammate who is really expert with databases, it made him feel more comfortable with the fact that he didn't have experience in other parts of the stack because he was able to simultaneously use his expertise with databases to help others, and he knew that others were excited to help him fill in the gaps in his skills. Now, when it comes to momentum, with this project, I did something a little bit interesting and at the time controversial, which, given this group of specialists, I said, we're going to organize the work and the tasks in vertical slices. So the way it's not going to work is that one of our teammates does the databasey part, and another does kind of the middle or the full stack part, and another does the front end part. It's totally inefficient, right? It takes one user story or one conceptual part of the feature and breaks it into 3 people's worth of work when it could be 1. So momentum came naturally in this case because as folks were working outside of their comfort zone, they were more inclined to submit smaller changes in their pull requests so that they could get faster and more continuous feedback. But even if you're not working with a team of specialists, encouraging smaller pull requests is good for everyone, both the author and the reviewer. That's it for this video, and if you liked it, go ahead and hit the like button below. It's a great and easy way that you can support the channel, and if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button too. I make videos about engineering, engineering careers, engineering management, and project leadership. So if you like this, there are a ton more coming, and if you have a question for me, you can go ahead and call or leave a voicemail or a text at the number that's in the description. I go through it every day, and at least once a week I make a video of questions from viewers and listeners like you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.